Oh, my favorite garment to sew is a jacket. There's just so much space for embellishment. Hi, I'm Joanne Banko, and I'm an author, a designer, and a sewing instructor. And today I'm going to show you how to dress up dresses with decorative stitches. So let's talk about using commercial patterns. I like to sew from scratch. I like to embellish ready to wear too, but I want to start by talking about some of the pattern choices that you're going to want to make when you use this technique. You want to look for patterns that have a band inserted somewhere. That could be the waistline, it could be the top of a pocket, could be somewhere around the neck, but you want to make it easy for yourself, you want to look for something that already has that pattern piece built in. So if you look at the little leaflet, you can see the outline drawings. That gives you a good indication of some of the areas that you can use for embellishment. I like to try to match my embellishment with my fabric. So if you look and you see the dresses that I've done, I've selected one color fabric from each one of those dresses and then used a contrasting band. So in some of them it's white, some it's a color. But then I've actually selected my decorative threads to coordinate with the fabric. That gives it a nice custom look. So let's talk about what we need to do to prepare that pattern to start with. What we're going to do is we're going to take our pattern piece and we're going to trace it onto paper or pattern tracing cloth. And we're doing that because most often we have a pattern that's cut on a fold. It's going to be a whole lot easier to have a full shape. So you can see what I've done there. I've actually put that on one piece of pattern tracing cloth and made a full pattern for myself. Now the next step we're going to do is prepare our fabric for stitching. And most of the time when we have an area like a yoke or a band, we're going to have interfacing in there, and that's a good thing because that's going to give us a little bit of extra support. So I like to choose a flexible, soft interfacing such as this tricot. This style of interfacing makes it so that you don't lose the character of your fabric. It just firms it up a little bit. And then the next thing I do is use some sort of a stabilizer. I'm a big fan of tearaways. They don't show. It's whatever's left is on the back side against the wrong side of the garment, so it doesn't really count for anything. So the next step is to take that full pattern piece, and you can see what I've done is I've traced it onto a piece of fabric, and I've left a full margin all the way around. Now that's just going to make it a little bit easier for me to start and stop my stitching, and then it's also going to make it easy for me to trace the outline. So you can see I've actually traced the outline of the pattern. And I use a wash-away marker for this most often. You want to make sure you always test your markers. Most of the time you're going to stitch and then press before you sew it together. So make sure you, to test is best. You want to test that marker and make sure it's removed before you start pressing. Make sure it comes easily off your fabric. Then you're going to mark the horizontal center line if you're going to stitch horizontally, the way I'm going to do today, or a vertical line. And if you look at some of the dresses, you'll see some of them are stitched vertically, some of them are stitched horizontally. It's your choice. You might even want to do a combination. But we only need one line to start with. We only need one center line. So let's move over to the machine. We're going to change the ordinary presser foot. And I want you to notice with this presser foot, we've got a very flat bottom, which is perfect for straight stitches and zigzags. It's not so perfect for decorative stitching. Decorative stitching builds up a little bit of bulk. So we're going to switch and we're going to first use a foot that is called a decorative stitch foot. And this foot actually has a groove or a channel on the underside. And that's going to make it flow right over those decorative stitches. So we're going to snap that on. Feed that tail underneath. And I'm going to take this piece of fabric that I have the tearaway stabilizer on as the backing. Remember, I only drew that one center line. That's all I'm going to need to start with. I'm going to go ahead into my decorative menu. There are so many decorative stitches in the machines today. You might spend half the day just trying to figure out which one you want to do. But you can look through your menu, try some different things, maybe try mirror imaging some of those stitches, flipping them, turning them around. And you've also got the opportunity with many machines to download stitches. So we're going to provide some free downloads for stitches for you today. Now, when I start to stitch, I'm going to just simply guide the center of the foot along that center line. When you are decorative stitching, it's very important that you don't fight with your fabric. Let it flow smooth and even, and it'll form nicely as long as you have that fabric stabilized. That is a very important part, though, that you don't want to forget. Decorative stitching I find very relaxing. The machine that I'm using actually slows the speed down for you, so when you're doing decorative stitching, you won't sew too fast and maybe distort those stitches. So if you don't have that feature, you may want to make note of that and make sure you slow your speed down a little bit. Now, it would take me a little while to stitch this whole thing, so I'm going to stop. I'm going to cut my thread, raise the presser foot, and we're going to try a few other different things so you can see a few other different stitches. So, let's go ahead and finish just this row. We'll stitch down to the position where I stitched that one, and then let's try another stitch. It's just so much fun to pick from these decorative stitches. There's just tons and tons. You really want to explore what's built into your machine. I'm a big fan of making a sampler of decorative stitches. Some of these decorative stitches, when you look at them in the machine, yeah, they look okay, but well, you stitch them out in some decorative thread, and then you're really amazed at how beautiful they are. You could change different sizes, change different colors. You could see, again, I picked up colors from the dresses that I used, and it's a lot of fun to play with these stitches. So we're going to stitch another row just down to the end of the one that I did here. You can see, again, I'm following the edge of the presser foot right along that first stitch, and you see how easy it is to just mark one line. Let your presser foot be your guide for the next line, until you fill that whole area. And different decorative stitches sometimes will move sideways, backward, forward, so you want to make sure you watch that. Let's go ahead and cut that thread. And I've got a finished sample already done for you. This is something that you can do on ready-wear items as well. So take a look at the ones that we have here, and you can see those are exactly where those bands are located. Some of the ones that we have here, we embellish the straps. Some of them have decorative stitching done on ribbons. There's so many things that you can do with the decorative stitches and so many areas where you can apply them. You just need to play a little bit and experiment.